New PlayStation 6 leaks and information about future projects, exclusives are slowly dying, and we got way more gaming news to go over. So good that you're joining the Sunday News Roundup, and let's go. We got an update from Ubisoft on the future of Far Cry, and it's a concerning one, you could say. They want to more predominantly push multiplayer in the future. The reason is that it can then be played for a long time by players. It's actually not surprising that they want to do this, and I also want to note why it's not as bad potentially as it might sound. Because next to co-op in the open world, Ubisoft has always been trying some form of an extra modes, with the arcade in Far Cry 5 for example, and the more co-op oriented missions for Far Cry New Dawn. Then in Far Cry 6 with the Spec Ops became way more multiplayer focused, as you really needed two players to succeed. I actually like these missions quite a lot, they were replayable and a nice change of pace from the open world, so Far Cry 7 might potentially have more of that, with a weekly Lola type store. But people still did not really care for this in Far Cry 6, so they have to find new ways to make it more appealing. But one reason is that most Far Cry players simply play the game alone. But the comments from the Ubisoft CEO about pushing into multiplayer for the next Far Cry could also be linked to the separate extraction shooter they are seemingly trying, and I personally think that that is the best approach. Not an extraction shooter per se, I mean really after Tarkov, what other extraction shooter has succeeded? But the fact that it's separate is nice, like just make Far Cry 7 solo friendly with sure some separate more co-op focused missions, but then that live service approach for the PvP side project. Now we did hear that this extraction shooter got rebooted earlier this year, and Tom Henderson, who reported on this, might even think it gets cancelled. We will likely see Far Cry 7 revealed next year during a Ubisoft Forward, unless Ubisoft wants to give it more time. They got a ton of other games for 2026 as well. What we at least know is that the game will be using the Snowdrop engine we most recently saw in Avatar and Star Wars Outlaws, so I think it's going to at least be a very pretty game. I'm ready for a new Far Cry. I don't think we should worry about the multiplayer push just yet. I will of course keep you posted here. We got multiple PlayStation Game Studio updates this week. Neil Druckmann for one did an interview with Variety and shared some info on Intergalactic and the future of The Last of Us. Troy Baker is in Intergalactic, we learned, and actually helped with the casting of Tati, who plays the main character Jordan, so they will have scenes together. While still being cagey, he teased that Uncharted was Naughty Dog getting a grip of the third-person shooters combined with emotional storytelling. Then The Last of Us added some RPG elements on top of that and more wide linear layouts, and that for Intergalactic they're adding some sci-fi on top. So basically it's going to be a more open action RPG type game. He notes that it will probably be the most expensive title they end up making, and that while they're focused on the game, they do set up the universe so that more can come out of it, including TV adaptations. But Neil does not know if a sequel to Intergalactic will be the next game they work on. When we finished The Last of Us Part 2, and that was highly successful for us, we were debating whether we should go straight into The Last of Us 3. They obviously did not do that because they were more excited about the idea of Intergalactic. So after releasing that game and deciding what the next game will be, they will focus on what they're most passionate about. They also note that this is not the end of The Last of Us for Naughty Dog, but that does not necessarily mean that it's going to happen indoors or outdoors. We're in talks to do multiple things. So basically leaving the door open for the fact that The Last of Us Part 3 can be worked on by a different development studio, which is interesting. They, by the way, first wanted to do a Last of Us movie before the TV show, but that did not work out. And Neil also teases that there are seemingly more cross-media Last of Us things happening. Maybe even a spin-off show or something, that's my speculation. Right now on the game side, it seems that Intergalactic is a 2027 title, so a launch in probably the final year of the PlayStation 5, similar to what The Last of Us Part 2 was for the PS4. And then Wolverine will be the big single-player title for 2026. Credible leaker Tom Henderson said that from a few playtesters that I've been speaking to, they think the game looks fantastic. And that's good to hear, because I totally think it's fair to get worried after the game director leaves, something we of course learned last year. Now we should see Wolverine very soon, maybe at the rumored State of Play in September. That will likely not happen this coming week, but the week after. We also learned that the Amazon God of War TV show will start filming seemingly in March 2026 in Vancouver. It should of course be a TV show about the 2018 game. I'm really curious if they can deliver on that. Now let's go over way more gaming news, those PlayStation 6 leaks. A like on the video would really help me out, and subscribe, because we post one of these big gaming news roundup videos every Sunday. Now time for quick shots, news stories I will go over quickly. Seems like we will be getting a new Wolvenstein game at some point, because Machine Games has noted in a new documentary from NoClip that they've always seen their version as a trilogy that is not yet finished. They of course did the Indiana Jones game in 2024 that this year came to PlayStation 5, and we just had the DLC, so I'm curious if they will make a sequel to that or go back to doing Wolvenstein. I don't think Indiana Jones was that big of a financial success, so I can see them do Wolvenstein 3 next. Oh, and yes, they basically do as if Youngblood, their co-op RPG iteration, never existed. We learned this week, thanks to a Min-Max interview with Sucker Punch director Nate Fox, that they celebrated the delay of GTA 6 from the end of 2025 to May 2026. Because yes, if GTA 6 did launch in, say, October, then Yotei would have been overshadowed very quickly. But now it kind of has the end of the year for us open world fans alone. Right now, the closest release date to GTA 6 is 007 First Light on March 27th, 2026. I'm curious how close other titles want to get. Although I still think GTA 6 will be delayed to the end of 2026, but we will see. And a reminder, the Ghost of Yotei reviews drop on September 25th. That is also when you can expect my spoiler-free review on the channel, so stay tuned. It's getting less and less interesting for publishers to go exclusive, especially for third parties, as Square Enix now confirmed that the full Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy will also release on Switch 2 and Xbox, after both Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16 did not sell that much on PlayStation 5. Great news, because now more people can play those games, but I think it's also interesting that this has kind of been a huge trend in 2025. Xbox just launched Gears of War and Forza Horizon 5 on PlayStation 5, something that was unthinkable a few years ago, and they have no plans of slowing down, while Helldivers 2 seemingly sold more in 6 days compared to the first 6 days on PlayStation 5. We also had Stellar Blade first, a PlayStation 5 exclusive, being a huge success on PC. Like, exclusives are always going to be needed to lure people to a certain platform, but I think we will start seeing that only the ones that are real system sellers, like a new God of War or Spider-Man, will remain console exclusives. While other titles that could also sell huge on Xbox or even Nintendo Switch 2 and need a large community like multiplayer games will come to as many platforms as possible. Now time for the rumor roundup, where we look at the biggest rumors of the week and I give stars, with 3 being I believe it and 1 being let's take this with a huge grain of salt. We got a bit more on the PlayStation 6, and it will squash a worry I saw many people have, because yes, the PS6 is planned to still have a detachable disk drive at launch. According to Tom Henderson, it will seemingly work the same as the PlayStation 5 Slim model does right now, where at launch we still have the digital PS6, so they can decide to buy a disk drive later on, but that there will also be a base model that comes with a detachable disk drive in the box. The leak also notes that the PlayStation 6 should have a much simpler design than its predecessor, again to maximize efficiency, shipping space, weight, and so on. Sony is seemingly really applying some learnings from the COVID period, where it was super hard to ship PS5s, and with the system now being even more expensive than at launch, I think Sony is looking at ways to cut costs as much as possible so they can get more people into the next generation. And like I already said, that is seemingly starting at the end of 2027, although yes, that sounds way too quick, but if that for Sony means that they can have a better and more affordable console on the store shelves, it might be a good reason for them to push it. And of course, I don't think this means they will abandon the PS5 generation. I think they will support the PS5 for a long time, also because they seemingly want to do a PS6 handheld that seems to run more on PlayStation 5 hardware. So I'm gonna do 3 stars on the disk drive and design rumor. I think it makes sense, I think it will happen. Let me know what you think, of course, in the comments down below. This week we got the big launch of Dying Light the Beast. They actually moved the release date up by 1 day to September 18th. Let me know if you'll be playing this smaller standalone game featuring the main character from Dying Light 1 in the comments down below. I'll be checking it out later because of my Ghost of Yotei review that I'm preparing, and because of the other big launch this week, the Claws of Awaji DLC for Assassin's Creed Shadows on September 16th. As you might know, on that day there will also be a free mission for everyone, so you can get the brand new bow staff weapon type for Naue. Expect a stream on the 16th and of course a ton of spoiler-free DLC content this week. We'll of course also be live on Monday with the weekly React stream, link to that in the video description, and of course a gaming news roundup like this will be at the end of the week. Check my Colossal YG preview by clicking on the screen if you haven't already. Subscribe and I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.